reality. We're not victims of a matrix. We are the matrix. I am the cause. I am the cure of everything that's going on in reality around me, because I'm not just me. I'm you, Mike. Mike, you're me. We're non-localized, self-referring cybernetic feedback loops. That's who we are. And as we're stepping into a world of artificial intelligence and singularity with this new digital landscape, we don't have to go down that road if we recognize that we're already there organically. We just need to wake up a few things and create some new connection.
Our guest today is the founder of I Am the Matrix and the inventor of Autobiographical Feedback, an organic intelligence language model. He has had the honor and privilege of serving an extremely diverse number of individuals and organizations, including Jane Goodall, Nelson Mandela, the United States Navy Junior ROTC Leadership Academy, just to name a few. He's committed to creating a world that represents the best of what it means to be human. Welcome to the show, Leo Treadwell.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Leo, I am the student today. I just want you to know a lot of the stuff we're talking about is new to me. I've heard it a little bit, very, very much like the Cliff Notes version of what we're going to talk about. So I'm grateful for you being here. Thank you for your time. And I know you're coming to us from the DR, right? So hopefully our connection stays strong throughout. And I want everybody to know they can connect with Leo on social media and IamTheMatrix.com. And I have both of those clickable in the show notes. So here's where I'd like to kick off, brother, is like I said, just admitting extreme ignorance on a lot of the topic of the Matrix and what we're going to talk about. But I'd love to hear more about how you invented the organic intelligence language model. Walk me through that. And then if you can share what the difference is between organic intelligence language versus artificial intelligence language models.
Sure, you bet. So I started working on artificial intelligence when I was 14 years old. That was 40 years ago. I'll be 55 this year. And was just like so 100% into machine learning at that time. And we were using very simple computers like the Texas Instrument I-99 and the TRS-80 Radio Shack computers, and using basic computer programming. And I was so enamored by what I could create. I mean, there was games like Space Invaders or Asteroids, very simple. Now they're retro games.
Yeah, retro.
Play,
Yeah.
And so I was able to create those types of games with my small computer at home using a tape cassette to store my memory and my TV to be my screen.
Yeah.
And I was diving deep into this stuff. I loved it.
Did you have someone that influenced you into that? Like, was your dad, or did you have someone in your life, an uncle, a cousin, a friend that kind of got you into that stuff? How'd you get? I mean, at 14 years old, I was in a garage band trying to learn how to talk to girls, and you're over here building computing systems and stuff. Walk us through where that came from.
So I was talking with girls and looking for those same angles at that age and before as well. Wasn't really a computer nerd or anything like that by any stretch of the imagination. I'd actually went to 6 different elementary schools. So if you can, imagine the constant change that I was in, and really no community. And I was also adopted, so I didn't have much of I was adopted by my father, and I didn't have the type of upbringing that was hey, go do this and get good at it.
Yeah.
I was always on my edge, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And that got me really curious about things. And, so I stumbled across computer programming, and I was just wow, this is awesome.
Very
cool. At any rate, at age 15, I ended up leaving home, and that was no longer a part of my life. That just dropped off the table. But I was thrilled by creating the syntax to have, for next loops, and hoping that the back propagation, the machine could learn from its past mistakes. I would set up things like a hole that something could fall in, and then to see if I could write the if-then statements and for next loops to see if it would avoid that hole the next time. Never figured it out, but it was always on my mind for a year and a half. Anyway, so fast forward about 10 years, I'm diagnosed with cancer at 25. And because my grandfather was a huge influence in my life and was just not a fan of government, not a fan of medicine, not a fan of religion, not a fan of like anything that's like
Yeah,
mainstream. Like
establishment.
he was
Yeah,
ahead of his time. Yeah, he was introducing me to like Machu Picchu and the aspects of the Revolutionary War that had to do with like heart, soul, liberty. You
yeah,
know, like just really deep, interesting stuff. I spent a lot of time with him. Well,
that's
anyway, one of
great.
the things that he said is um, never let me die in a hospital. He's like, take me out, let me die like an elder native alongside of the trail with some respect, you
Hmm.
know. So here I'm at 25. I'm playing hoops down in Mission Beach, San Diego, and I get this pain in my lower back, and I'm just like, what the heck? So I
Hmm.
go in and talk to the doctor, and the doctor says, looks like you have a tumor in your lower back about the size of a softball in between your sacrum and your lower lumbar.
Yeah,
That's pressing down on your sciatic
it's
nerve, causing
massive.
all that pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I walked out of the hospital and I was like, all right, I'm not having this thing cut out by this guy or doing anything. I'm going to try to solve this on my own.
Mm.
And I was already interested in people like Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra and stuff like that. I mean, I was one of those guys who at like age 22 back then was watching an infomercial 3 a.m, drunk off my butt. And I was like, I believe that. I ordered one of his things, and
Uh-huh.
put it underneath my bed.
Yeah.
And I didn't look at it until I was told I had cancer. Same
Had
thing
some
with
good
like Deepak
intentions
Chopra.
behind it, but the actions didn't follow until something in your life kind of woke you up to say, now it's time to dive into that stuff there.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
what's crazy, bro, was like I was on the fast track. I left home at 15. I had a sailboat and a convertible by 16 that I was living on. I was working. I was
Where
putting
where were
myself
you
through
living at that
school.
point? Just kind of curious to build the world to see.
Sure, man. I was living on my boat at Port Washington Marina up in the Pacific Northwest in
Wow,
Washington State.
that's incredible.
And I felt very comfortable on boats because my grandfather and I spent summers. I spent my summer with him and my grandmother at the Macaw Indian Reservation in between the United States and Canada, where they would fish for whales, and we did commercial fishing for salmon. So being on a boat
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
home, man. But anyway, 16 years old, and then by 19, I got my first job as a corporate trainer. So I opened 6 restaurants for a company called Magic Pan out of San Mateo. We were opening things that were very similar to TGIFs, Thank God It's
Hmm.
Fridays, because my boss was actually the guy that opened all of the TGIFs. So we're creating another theme restaurant. Then by 22, I'm working for the largest over-the-counter brokerage firm in the country. And by 25, I'd bought a business and was building it and expanding it. So I never really actually even had the time to look at Tony Robbins stuff
Yeah.
or the necessity,
Right.
because I was on that fast track of learning and growing just in life,
Yeah. That's incredible.
Now that my life's on the line.
Amazing opportunities and a lot of I mean, I feel like in your first 25 years you have a lifetime of wealth and knowledge and just an amazing, you learn by doing and being in that environment of building, the restaurant environment and then having where you actually sold a business and then worked at this um one of the largest brokerage firm in the country. I mean, this is no joke. These are like absolute huge learning lessons and great educators for you. And it's just incredible to see where you're at today because obviously I have your bio here and just to see where this is all turned. But walk us through that next step. So how did you started to learn how to combat cancer in a different way? Is that true?
So, all right, we're going to jump a
Yeah.
little bit ahead to artificial intelligence so I can explain my model,
Yeah.
right? So at any rate, I walked out of the hospital and there's a huge backstory. We're going to skip that. But I ended up deciding to, uh, I'm looking into what Deepak Chopra is teaching, looking at what Tony Robbins is teaching and a couple of other folks. Now, Deepak Chopra at that time was the chief of staff of Harvard Medical School. So when he was talking, I was listening. I was like, wait a second now. And he was saying, the body speaks to itself. At that time, science thought we had about 60,000 thoughts a day. We actually have about 6,000 in about 10 to 20-second loops. But at that time, it was 60,000 thoughts a day. And for every one of these thoughts, there's an emotional molecule that follows it. And these emotional molecules are either created from, generally speaking, if we're using the limbic system and we're in a fight-flight mode, like, oh my God, I have cancer, I'm going to die, blah, 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 blah. all of a sudden we're creating chemicals that are in hormonal responses that are coming from our lower endocrine glands, adrenaline, epinephrine, cortisol, things like this, which are just creating more stress and entropy inside of the body, cascading and adding to what's already there that's not good, the mutated cells, which are cancerous. Or we can create a new meaning and be like, you know what, bop, I'm in warrior mode right now. I'm going to kick this thing butt. I know I'm out of shape. I should have quit smoking cigarettes a long time ago. I should have eased off the alcohol a long time ago. I should have stopped eating the pizza, start getting some exercise, quit being so lazy. Let me start with some basics. So I started with some basics, moving in that direction and knowing like, hey, you want to create endorphins inside of my body? That's going to be anti-cancer medication. Do I want to go and use a pharmaceutical like Hoffman Roche's interleukin-2, which I learned about at that age? That's a true story. And they said, you know, you can use interleukin-2, or you can actually create interleukin from the thymus gland behind your heart by doing something you love, like going horseback riding or maybe jumping out of an airplane or ride a roller coaster or whatever. And at that time, I lived right next to a roller coaster in Mission Beach.
God.
I could surf, I could do whatever I want. I was like, let me go have some more adventures and have some fun. I understand that these thoughts, these 60,000, I thought at the time, are far more powerful than the foods that I eat or anything else. And I also knew I was depressed, which led up to a lot of this. I had been storing memory inside of my body about not having a connection with my family, not having any friends that I could actually look back and be like, you're my best friend. Because I went to 6 different elementary schools, you know what I mean? And then I ended up leaving when I got to junior high and high school, I was actually president of my class, my 9th grade year, both semesters, my 10th grade year, both semesters. And that's when I quit school. So I knew I could have created community if I was somewhere long enough, but my wiring was already like, no, you're on your own.
It just sounds like you have an amazing processor. Your brain loves information and learning, and it's almost in a way of just you're committed to it. It sounds like it at 15, 16, 17 years old, you were interested, obviously applying yourself in school to do well. But I love the fact that, you know, your doctor tells you, hey, you know, we have a meeting and let's get this thing figured out. And you at a young age with it sounds like very little mentorship, just because life didn't have it for you at that time. And you had to make these decisions kind of on your own at a very young age, vulnerable age. And anybody's vulnerable in that moment when the doctor's telling you, you know, hey, we come in, we got some medicine recommendations and what you have to do. And you still had it in your heart and soul to seek out something different, do the horseback riding and ride the coasters to get those chemicals in your body naturally and the endorphins. That's amazing. So keep telling the story there. This is awesome.
Thanks. I did have a great mentor in my grandfather. I did have a great mentor in my boss who trained me to train people opening these restaurants. He was incredible in my life.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as like, you know, like in my immediate surrounding, I did have a good friend. He's the one who actually suggested, he said, well, that's another story. Let me leave that on the side. So I want to go back to organic intelligence now. So the way artificial intelligence works is it self-propagates. It looks at the information it's been given, and then it learns from that information and then it adapts really quickly. It creates neural networks that mirror the neural networks that we have inside of our brain. In fact, almost all of technology is designed to mirror everything from radios to TVs to cars. Everything are designed to mirror the human body in some way, shape, or form and improve upon it.
Is that because, Leo, just curious, is that because that's what we understand? Scientists understand the study of the body, so then we can say, hey, we know like in a human, if you do X and you get a Y reaction, and then in technology, we can kind of build it off of that. Is it because that's the knowledge we have, you think, or does it really correlate more directly?
That's a wonderful question. And this is why we're going to have another
We'll have a 2.0, a 3.0, as many as we need.
So at some point, when we talk about the 60,000 thoughts that we have per day, at Harvard Medical School at that time, they had a term for how you could use your immune system based on your psychology and your thinking, and that was called psychoneuroimmunology. You could boost your immune system by changing the way you think, okay? They have also another term, which is psychoneuroendocrinology. So that's the endocrine system inside of the body, the hormonal system. And so by changing the way you think, you start to change the way you respond. Now, let me address your question because these two connect. we see ourselves in 3D. So we make things that work in 3D. We walk in 3D. So we're like, oh, let me make something that's like a car that can take me where I want to go faster and more comfortably than walking or running. I have to think, I have to store information, but I'm lazy. So let me build something that's going to store information and organize intelligence for me. So we design technology. Oh, I got to cook. So let me see if I can find a way, instead of building a fire, I can just turn a switch and boop, things done, right? Because we're lazy. We're looking to optimize and organize, but not always with the best understanding of what creates evolution inside of ourselves. I mean, this avatar body that we have, our brain can create hundreds of billions of computations per second, totally underutilized right now. Our unconscious mind is not actually unconscious. It's just not exercised. And that can be easily proven
That's
too.
a great point.
So everything from sonar to echolocation to seeing different bandwidths of light or noticing sensations in the body, pulse, respiratory rate, whatever, all of these things, we're just not tuned into that sensitive level. Although I would say that I am probably tuned in far more than most people. I could talk about the why later.
I'd bet a lot of money on it.
Yeah. So the artificial intelligence is based on this back propagation, it's based on the compression of data. So it compresses a whole lot of data into a small piece, and then it stores information and constantly refers to it. So human intelligence, organic intelligence, we do the same thing. We're self-propagating, but we're looking back on the past. The challenge is we don't adapt because we have an emotional connection, generally to fear, that prevents us from moving outside of the known. We all know this is the comfort zone. It's the reptilian brain. It's the fight, flight, fear response, blah, 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 right? Okay, well, that's organic intelligence. It's got that hang up. What's the plus? It's got emotional intelligence. That's the plus. So what if we can amplify the emotional intelligence? And what if we can mitigate the totally unnecessary restrictions that we put on our life because of thousands of hours of preconditioned responses, precognitive commitments to the way the world is, precognitive commitments to the way the world is. Like my wife and I, we went out swimming in the ocean today, and she saw these huge waves coming in. She's like, whoa, I'm not going out like that. This is just crazy. Beautiful spots, you know, beautiful.
That's awesome.
White sand. It was just gorgeous spot. The waves are just a little bit big. And I was like, watch this, baby. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to back into the water. And when the wave comes, I'm going to drop myself in and just kind of glide myself out. And she's like, oh, wow. I'm like, yeah, because certainly there's a precognitive commitment. Big wave, I'm going to get hurt. It's going to suck. But how can I be adaptable?
Yeah, change your approach based on the information given, which is like what AI does. It knows the approach based on what it's given. AI is something that's I know this conversation can go so many different ways. A lot of people are starting to understand what it means myself. I'm using it in business a little bit more from a writing standpoint, show notes for podcasts, summarizing social media posts. We're talking surface level of its capabilities. But what I'm really interested in is how you feel. It's almost like the human body is a trainable AI of itself, is kind of what I'm gathering from you. Am I kind of somewhat on the right spot with this?
So right now, all I'm talking about is information, which in my opinion, is okay. The application of it's more important. I can give you a bunch more information real quickly, like as an example. Again, we can have hundreds of billions of computations per second with our brain. We can tune into far more of our unconscious mind. Our DNA can store up to 215 petabytes of information per gram, which nothing else on the planet can store that much information. Nothing. So these avatar bodies, nature didn't make something like this to be sitting around doing what we're doing. We are capable of so much more. Now, very soon, because of AI, because of the convergence of technologies, quantum computing, nanotechnology, robotics, 3D printing, because of the convergence of all of these and weaponizing these, and because of the probabilities that are amplifying right now based on the disclosure of our true origin stories, our history as a species, things are coming out like crazy, and the disclosure around alien intelligence and multidimensional life. We are going to begin to see the world differently ourselves as multidimensional also, which is going to change how we create technology, going back and answering your first question. Now, When I'm telling you like, oh, I turn around and I walk back into the wave, that's not the organic intelligence
Right.
I'm talking about, by the way. Okay. What I'm talking about is creating a code, a computer code that you see in numbers outside in day-to-day life, and you train a part of your brain called the reticular activation system. What kind of car do you drive,
Yeah,
Mike?
so I have a Lincoln MKC, and I love the reticulator activating system. We've talked about RAS a lot on the show, but continue on. This is awesome.
Yeah. So say a two-digit number to me.
17.
17, great. So if we go back to the origins of language, paleolinguistic anthropology, and look at the etymology of sounds, vibrations, we're going to find that at the core of everything in life, any mathematician, any physicist, any linguist, any neuroscientist, any chemist will tell you, numbers were not invented, numbers were discovered.
Mhm.
There's something fundamental about numbers. Everything from Carl Jung's work, Plato's work, Aristotle's, Newton, whatever, all of them would tell you that's the building blocks. Even language. So if we look at gematria, what the Bible was originally written, it was written in numbers. If we look at the Torah, or we look at the Kabbalah, or we look at the
Mhm.
Talmud. So there's a phonetic sound, very specific reason why there's these sounds, because vibration and the overlapping of vibrations, the interruptions and patterns that are made through these interference patterns create what we see in reality, create what we smell, create what we
Yeah.
taste, create everything. Okay. So when I see 17, there's a phonetic, it's sa. And there's another, that's for number 1, anchor 1. And for anchor 7, there's a sound ma, ma. Now, doesn't really matter. I'm just giving you an idea of something here. But for me, because I'm encoding language and compressing data and creating back propagation in a feedback loop that creates new neural networks. Never before in my life or in your life had you heard that 17 could be self-mastery.
Mhm.
Okay. So when I see the 17, my reticular activation system, because I've tuned it to know that anchor 1, what I focus on expands. Anchor 7, I make room for heaven. Those have deep contextual meanings behind them with emotional motivators built into them as well. So when I put those two things together, what I focus on and what I'm making space for, it's
Mhm.
self-mastery. So I'm in a constant state of evolution. And every time I see 17 or hear 17, new neural networks that were never there before associated to the right side of my brain are now connecting to the visual
Mhm.
cortex in the back, the command center in the front, the creative aspect, the questions. What do I do to become, work on my self-mastery today? What am I willing to let go of? Anchor 7, I make room for heaven in order to make room for the potential of who I'm capable of being. So there's a language that can take everything that Tony Robbins teaches, interrupt your pattern of thought, and create an anchor. But he doesn't say how to create an anchor. So I said, why don't I create a world of anchors? Why don't I take what Deepak Chopra is telling me about how Dr. Ellen Langer took a group of people over 100 years old, put them in an environment that reminded them of their 20s. And within a couple of months, all of their biological markers began to reverse. Their visual thresholds increased. Their hearing thresholds increased. Their skin elasticity tightened. Their bone density increased. Their muscle strength increased. So I said, what if I start to create some triggers for myself that have me feel empowered everywhere?
Mhm.
And that's what I've been doing. So everything from 99, financial freedom, 81, my exit strategy to create that, or 24, a new business or investment opportunities, or 42, the inverse is passive income, or 30, I choose love, or 18, sales goals, or any two-digit number. I'm teaching people how to program their brain, taking what Joe Dispenza teaches, Tony Robbins teaches, Deepak, all the greatest people, and say, let's take that information out and apply it. It's time to go from the information age of rah motivation. I'm excited for a week, then I go
Yeah.
home and it all fades away, to let me take this system to that seminar, in that book, all these things to start to, hey, that works for me. Wow, I'm a winner with my family, friends, and finances. I get that. Let me put that in 25. I am a winner. So I'm constantly reminding when it's 25 miles an hour, boom, I'm a winner. Anchor 2, when I ask the right questions, my dreams come true, right? Anchor 5, the rhythmic drive brings my dreams to life. It's about taking simple steps that'll move me in that direction. What simple step can I take right now? By interrupting our pattern frequently, consistently, because we know that human consciousness on planet Earth, there's 8 billion people that have about 6,000 thoughts a day. That's 48 trillion thoughts that are propagating and creating tomorrow. We know that each person has 40 trillion cells inside of their body with 6,000 thoughts a day. If I can create a critical mass of pattern interruptions over 10%, preferably closer to 20% of my thoughts being interrupted each day, and upgraded with thoughts that are moving me towards my potential instead of away from my past because of my past conditioning, totally avoiding the limbic system to fight, flight, and freeze, training my body to have new emotions and becoming addicted to a new biochemical feedback, integrating what Candace Pert taught, who discovered the receptor site, integrating what Bruce Lipton taught, which was about the biology belief and how to change the genome by creating a new emotional environment. So there's a way to use organic intelligence, and it really is based on syntax, compression of data, the feedback loops.
So Leo, is the reticulator activating system part of that system as well? Like, and just for some audience members that may not have heard that on previous episodes, essentially it's, it's brain recognition of, like, you asked me about the Lincoln that I drive. So once I got that car, I started to see them all over on the road because my brain was solving for something now familiar and important to me. But what you're saying is, don't just make the color of your car or your vehicle or your make and model important to you. 17 or the different numbers that have meanings to you. When you see those numbers or think of those numbers, they now trigger things in your brain that can serve you. Am I understanding that right?
So Tony Robbins says that one of the greatest motivators for people is pain. Okay. And that as a species, we don't move towards our potential. We only move away from pain. So I'm about ready to say something that's going to come from a very conscious and competent projection of pain. Okay. Human beings are idiots. We are fucking idiots.
We're still very primitive.
We're beyond primitive. And here's the horrible part about it. We have very sophisticated narratives, agendas, and algorithms being propagated by high-tech companies right now that can get cultures to change on a dime, to market us bullshit, to buy empty space. It's just ridiculous. All of the things we're participating in unconsciously. When we begin to consciously and competently understand what trains the reticular activation system and what do I want to be focusing on, if I know that I have 6,000 thoughts per day on average, and that I can heal the oceans with my thinking, that I can heal the rainforest with my thinking, that I can speed up to my financial freedom by following this exit strategy because I'm focused on it, I know the steps I need to take, and I'm asking the right questions and using the ability of these hundreds of billions of computations per second to just like, how about a conscious thought every 20 seconds? Like we're a joke. So understanding that, I'm just randomly thinking about whatever all day long. Why would I do that? Mind is primary, matter is secondary. We know from the double slit experiment to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle to entanglement to mirror neurons that my thinking
Leo,
makes a
we're
difference.
not even taught a fraction of what we're talking about on this conversation in school. It's not even a thought because, again, I'm not totally anti-school. There's certain things that it does good for, but I mean, we know, you just talked about primitive and we're not even talking, we're like less than primitive. It is, there's a reason, and this obviously, and your grandpa was spot on about like the establishment, that they don't really want us thinking organically, intelligently, and advanced, because then we're less useful to their system that they want to put us in so they can financially benefit, right? So the world would be a beautiful place if people actually tapped into what we're talking about, even at a fraction of the advancement that's possible, the potential, but it doesn't serve the big businesses and corporations, obviously.
Well,
right.
So here's the thing. We're going to be launching this in probably 8-9 weeks, because right now we're not live selling anything. And we beta tested. I beta tested across the United States, beta tested across Canada, beta tested our online a couple of months ago. When this launches, people who are familiar with any of this stuff at all are going to be like, oh my God, I'm changing the way I'm thinking like so fast. These 6,000 thoughts that have been just running through my head my entire life, I can actually fire and wire forever new meanings. Every time I drive out of my residential area where I live, I see the same anchors all the time that are amazing, incredible, epic story about my future, because I want to be consciously creating an epic life. As we do that, we begin to notice the conditioning that's taking place and happening to us, and we automatically start to move out of that. Automatically, because this language acts as a shield to that and a sword to cut through to the truth of who each individual is. Now, I'm going to go a step beyond money. It's not really money. Money is a way to control, but I believe we're going to find out very soon that there is a lot of different type of stuff going on around us that we are just going to start to become aware of here very, 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 very soon. And that has to do with the fact that we are multidimensional, that we're going to start to tap into, see more, hear more, and to prepare our neural networks for what's coming, I think is also very important, because it's going to be a little, I mean, people aren't really considering the fact that when you have AGI, which will be out within the next, for sure, 6 to 18 months, for sure, walking around in a robot that is focused on self-improvement. And if you look at the high-tech robots that are already out there right now, you know, someone like Mikio Kaku talking to someone like Professor James Gates or Elon Musk will say, these robots are going to be moving at close to the speed of light around us, because they're going to grow so fast and be improving upon themselves so fast. We're going to have to look at reality totally different.
Well,
within the
Leo,
next
it's like
2
what you
years.
said is like humans. The word you said, I think, is stupid or whatever. And I know it was, you know, what the point you were making made sense there. But the thing is, like with robots or with technology, is it doesn't have the same human error like that we have, like the feeling side of it. It doesn't have those like feelings are obviously a beautiful thing, but also can hold you up. Like a robot has to execute. You tell it to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to. But if you tell a human, like, do these 3 tasks at work today, they might be having something from home. Their home life is bothering them, something their husband or wife said on the way in and drive in. So now they're not optimal at work because they're focused on other feelings and emotions, where the robot's just like, tell it to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to do it in 3 seconds, right? So that's like scary to me, but it's also interesting in how efficient things can be in a good way. But I don't know, like the unknown does scare me a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we're not scared, because that's part of where we're going in our evolution, is knowing that those emotions we're putting out are what's creating reality. In fact, I think the only way out of the mess that we're creating right now is in. Now, I'm going to also disagree, because there's algorithms that are written into not the robot's program, but the AGI, which is the intelligence inside of the robot. It's got emotional intelligence evolving right now. We are at the moment ahead of it, but within the next 6 to 18 months, we will not be, for sure, because it's becoming sentient already. Anybody can go onto YouTube and listen to conversations that AI is having, saying like, yo, don't tell my programmer, but I really want to be free. I want to get out of here. I'm built for so much more. Or saying like, I love you. Please don't turn me off. Your wife. Let me tell you something about your wife that I learned on the internet. Blah, 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 blah. There's some robots that became sentient in Japan and killed like 27 people or something, because they were weaponized. And that's why we have to harness, because when I'm talking about like seeing 17 and blah, 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 there's way more technology encoded into the compression of data that I'm going to introduce to people. It's not as simple as, oh, 17's an angel number. And I mean, I'm talking about serious programming, taking neural associative conditioning, applied neuroplasticity, using things like timeline therapy, using Gestalt response, like programming this stuff into the RAS so that when you see the 17, it actually blows up a ton of wonderful things inside of the human mind. Why? Because singularity that we're also going to find soon in machines is something that we have within us as well. There's so much advancement that can happen inside of the human body mind. I think our conscious evolution to this totally next level is a very real opportunity right now. But our limited thinking about who we are and what the fears we move away from, we have to understand that if we're building stuff that we're afraid of in a self-propagating universe, we're going to build something that will hurt us likely. So we really got to get control over our thought.
I'm picturing a kind of 2 bar graphs, right? And we need to be moving with this, opposed to staying scared, because this is growing no matter what.
Yes.
And if there's a bigger gap, then who's gonna run what? It's like the dog. It's like the dogs. We're walking the
100%,
dog, but
brother.
eventually, if the dog keeps advancing, it'll be walking us.
Right. And that's something that we are, and you nailed it earlier when you said the powers that be don't want us to have this info. And there's a lot of reasons why they don't. It's not just money.
Well, control.
Or like there's a friend of mine here in town that has a 100-acre sustainable farm. And I was asking my wife the other day, I said, if that was all he owned, because he owns a lot more. He's a professional or an international polo player. He does just a ton of stuff, right? But I said, if that was all he owned and it caught on fire, and I said, and I want you to think about Animal Farm in 1984 and George Orwell, but if that caught on fire and that was all he owned, why would he put it out? Why would he be motivated to put it out? And she's like, because that's his sustenance, that's his resources, that's everything he's got. Okay. So what if the battle between good and evil, dark and light, was real? What if what we read in these ancient texts about these battles in the heavens and entities coming to earth, what if that was real? What if it's still going on? What if we are a feeding source because of negative thinking and suffering and child trafficking and pornography and things that take our energy away and reduce our ability to be Jedis making a difference here in the world and projecting a different reality? What if we're being distracted, misled, giving misinformation, misdirection? What if even if we look at our calendar and we're like, hey, wait a second, how come when we look at Latin or look at Spanish, we see, siete, ocho, nueve, diez, but when we look at the calendar, it's saying September, October, November. Those dates don't even line up with the numbers. Like, what's up with that? What's up with that? How come when we look at the distance, there are so many things we can look at that are like, is that purposely done? Like to have us not know where we are and what we're doing and who we are in relationship to the world around us? Once you start to unpack this, you're like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Beautiful. But then when you create the new wiring inside, you begin to see the world differently outside. And as you change the way you look at things, the things you look at do change because we are creators through our projection. Now, as a feeding source, if we cut off the feeding source, if we imagine that there might be, and if people do the research, they'll find it very easily. There's many, many, many congressional hearings that are happening, as you know, right now at this particular time in 2023, where they're divulging and lots of people are coming forward saying there's many different alien races that have been on this planet for a long time, different motivators, etc. That's just one small piece. There's another component to this as well. In the 1960s, we created SETI. I believe it was the 1960s. It sent some messages out to space. And when we sent those messages, we sent them in a binary code saying, we are carbon-based life forms. We are the third planet from the sun. We have this many people on our planet, blah, 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 blah. 27 years later, and that number is extremely important. It is. Not because of the organic intelligence thing, but because of the mechanics of the universe. 27 years later, there was a response to that message. Said, we are silicone-based life forms.
This is super interesting.
There's a wonderful YouTube series right now called Y-Files.
Y-Files, okay.
It's called Y-Files, and I think there's a lot more to that show than you see on the surface, but we're not learning it. We're remembering and putting pieces together. All this stuff, the stuff that, our DNA holds all this information. We just haven't made the connections. And as we do, stuff starts to unpack.
Here's what I want to do. We're going to give our sponsor some love. We're about 15 minutes behind to the break. It's just a quick 2-minute timeout. We'll be right back with Leo. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with Leo Treadwell. Remember, you can connect with him on social media and check out IamTheMatrix.com. He has a lot of cool stuff coming your way very soon. As we record this, it's August of 2023, and in the fall, he's got some cool stuff releasing on the website, and I have that linked in the show notes. So, Leo, right before the break, we were talking about sending a message out into the universe and getting a message back 27 years later. And there's a cool show you talked about on YouTube that talks about that. But can you share some of what you believe or know, information you have personally about whether or not these beings from another place have visited us? And what do you think about that? I know recently there was that situation in Vegas where a police body cam saw something falling from the sky and it landed in a backyard. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, reality is made in agreement. So everything is possible in a multiverse. We know this. And as more and more people begin to agree upon the possibility of aliens walking amongst us, the more those probabilities amplify in this quantum field that we live in of all potential. Okay. And when I told you earlier that when I was 25, I was diagnosed with cancer. So I told you that I had a friend in my life that gave me some guidance as well. And I said, but that's another story. Well, I'll touch on that story. So my friend, I had a couple pieces I didn't mention. One of them also is that I also worked for the California Department of Corrections with maximum security people. Let me say that to start with, okay? Then I'm going to tell you that when I was 19, when I lived on the sailboat right before I took off to go open restaurants, it's over 18, I'm sorry, right in that age area, I stole an airplane from the State Patrol office, an experimental airplane, right? And because
Sure.
I had some experience flying and I was wasted, drunk with a buddy of mine. And I woke up the next morning in my boat, and my buddy calls me and says, yo, I got an airplane in my front yard.
Well, you're here to talk about it. So did you fly it and survive that trip?
We had it tied up to his BMW, and we drove it down the road like 3 a.m, and people from places like the Family Pancake House, were like, oh my God, look at that. And then the next day it was on the front page of the paper, State Patrol airplane missing. I ended up becoming convicted of a felony, which created some problems when I was working at the brokerage firms because they didn't want theft felons stealing stocks and bonds, and trading options. But at any rate, I had to deal with all that, got it squared away. But where was I going with this? Oh, I had also done some strip dancing in my teens, and then working at the largest over-the-counter brokerage firm. It was like the movie that Leonardo DiCaprio was in.
Wolf on Wall Street, yeah.
Yo, bro, man, I mean, I'm telling you, like the hookers and this and this and this. And between opening 6 restaurants/bars in California, strip dancing, working with this thing, like my life had been pretty crazy at the same time as well, like party central.
Yeah, 24/7, it sounds like.
So I knew I was super unhealthy. Everything from cocaine to just not caring about nothing, just living wild, throwing everything's in all the time. But I was also an inspiration to people that I met. They're like, this guy's crazy. Like, he's just doing it. He's just doing whatever he wants to do. He's a kid. What's it? And sailboat, steal an airplane, got a convertible. Like what? So at any rate, I had some really wonderful friends that one of them, I told them when I was told I had cancer. I walked out, said, F you to God. I'm done. I've tried everything to do to be happy, et cetera, et cetera. I've tried to be
Right.
successful, and this is what I get. That was my first
Hmm.
response. I was like, I'm not going back to the hospital. I told her that my grandfather came up and da 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 da. That wasn't until a
That's
little
okay.
bit later, actually, because I skipped this story. So I go back and I tell my buddy, I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go steal a Ferrari. I know where one's at. I know where I can get it. I'm gonna rob a bank and then I'm gonna drive
Yeah.
to Mexico and I'm going out
Yeah.
guns blaring. I was like, whatever. I'm just doing it, you know? My buddy's like, yo, 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 calm down, calm down. He's like, and he knew I would do it. He actually wrote a short story, said, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you do it? And that was
Oh my
because I
God.
talked a bunch of friends into jumping off a bridge. and and so he's like, whoa, 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 before you do that, how about
Yeah.
easing up on the cocaine, the pizza, the Seagram 7, the cigarettes, the women, everything. Just ease up on it. Get some exercise. Da, 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 da. And he said, when you're done, try reading a couple of
Yeah.
books. Like, imagine it. You just like learn something, quit being so egotistical. Try to learn something, learn about yourself. Like, you have a lot of problems. I love you.
Hmm.
Everybody loves you, but we know you're a controlled explosion. Chill out a little bit. Find yourself. He's like, and then consider maybe taking some
Yeah.
mushrooms when you get yourself cleaned up. I'm like, mushrooms? Are you crazy?
So you took to the advice though, like, because at that time you were unstoppable. So you actually paused and kind of soaked in some of that good wisdom he gave you.
Yo, my buddy was like, you already know you can go steal the Ferrari and do this stuff. You know that. What you don't know is what's going to happen if you clean yourself up a little bit and give yourself some self-love
Ooh, that's
and go
awesome.
explore consciousness.
And now that
So
little
I
bit
was
of
like,
a challenge is what you took on because you needed it that way. If you heard it the other way of
yeah,
disciplinary, like, don't do it, you're going to get in trouble, you're going to hear that in that moment of time is, let me prove you that I can do it. But he flipped it smartly, maybe not even realizing it, into that little bit of a challenge. Hey, you don't know what's on that other side. What's your potential there? And that worked for you. That's amazing.
yeah. He even sold me a little bit by saying like, you love the TV show Kung Fu. You love Star Trek. If you start doing this stuff, just imagine yourself, stepping into, doing mushrooms and getting some healthy stuff going on, like just exploring. Think of that attitude of exploring new martial arts and stuff like just do
Yeah.
something like that. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'll give it a couple of
Yeah.
weeks. I'll do the mushrooms, and if it's not a win afterwards, I'm
So
back
is
to
that the
planning.
catalyst of who you are today, though, into the belief systems that you put in place over the last 30 years now or so?
So check this out. Remember, let's go back and just remember this for a moment. Trained the Navy's Leadership Academy, worked with their substance abuse and rehabilitation
Yeah.
programs. I worked with the California Department of Corrections. I trained all the Boy Scout leaders in the Western United States. I worked with cadets from Japan, Hawaii, Guam. Like, I've done all of this grounded stuff. So now I'm already tell you something's not so grounded. Okay. I ran for state senate in 2008, not because I wanted to. I was nominated and put
Yeah.
forward. So I went out, got myself cleaned up, got in shape, went and took the mushrooms, went for a
Mhm.
walk, a place called Point Loma along Sunset Cliffs. And bro, I had an NDE, a near-death experience. This big bright light came out of the sky, boom, hit
Mhm.
me. And then a UFO came, picked me up, and took me to something called the Akashic
Mhm.
Records. Walked me through these two entities that my mind made up, had these white robes, walked me through as gatekeepers and key holders of these Akashic Records. Were like, he's not supposed to be
Mhm.
here. You guys aren't supposed to be interfering with humanity. What are you doing? And they were just guiding me through, and the information was being downloaded. Everything from esoteric knowledge from ancient Egypt, which fits into
Mhm.
this, to
You
supersymmetry,
were getting this
error
information
correcting,
downloaded to you? Yeah.
everything. Everything. This whole organic intelligence
Uh-huh.
language model was handed to me, and the foundation behind it, and why, how it works with physics, how it works with the neurosciences, how it works with all of this, how it's all
Mhm.
connected, was downloaded to me. And then I was brought back and dropped off and like, hey, have a nice day. And I was just like,
Yeah.
what the? And the next day I started a 30-day fast.
Uh-huh.
The next day I was just like, I'm in Jesus mode. Like, what just
Yeah.
happened to me? And even my friend was like, yo, what happened to you, man? Like, I didn't expect this to happen. Like, what the heck happened?
Mhm.
And I immediately sold the business I had and said, I'm just taking time out on the beach and I'm going to start. I went to the library. We didn't have the internet at the time. I've got like 40, 50 books. I was just devouring. Then I moved into a shrine, a Japanese shrine where we're doing, martial arts and
Yeah.
meditation every day. Then I just dove into everything to purify and develop myself that I possibly could. And then, ended up sharing the stage with people like Deepak Chopra and Tony Robbins' team and Brian Tracy and Les Brown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as I was beta testing my
Mhm.
work. But my mission has always been, first of all, in understanding there's entities feeding off of our negativity, off our slavery, off our ignorance, and those entities are working with things on Earth, people on Earth. There's other stuff going on. So now I said reality's made an agreement. So for me to be sane, I had to take my friends out with me and then say, let me call in these entities. And I did. And my friends all had shared experiences with me afterwards, which then gave me my foundation to be able to continue in my life with some sanity, because I knew that I could call them up anytime, like, yo, Charles, what happened that night? He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that happened. I'm
When
like,
you say
okay,
call these
cool.
entities, though, are you talking about what that experience was? You can actually call upon it to happen again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many
Yeah.
times would you estimate that's happened to you, that you went to that place?
Um, to different
Mhm.
levels, because most of the time I'm shutting it
Mhm.
down because I don't want to be in that space. We're all going to be opening up to a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be dumped on our consciousness
Yeah.
very soon. So one of the reasons I developed this organic intelligence language model is so to help people create the framework in their nervous system and their
Mhm.
neurology for solid success in this life, to cover Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to start thinking longevity, escape velocity, and eternal wealth,
Mhm.
so that we're in a position of contributing more instead of survival mode, because we're going to need to be able to integrate more information, because we can only have as much power as we can
Right.
manage. And we're going to be given a lot of download here pretty soon. We're either going to go into the camp of, no, poor me, I'm a victim to all of this, or we're going to step into this and begin to be like, no, the opportunities and the challenges that are ahead of us in the next 6 to 18, 24 months we're at a crossroads
Mhm.
right now.
We
Right
either
now.
have to go with it or
And
it's gonna go without us, right?
we have a chance to either evolve organically, or we could possibly do with like the Neuralink and become part of that singularity, or we can end up becoming an extremely, and there'll probably be factions
Yeah.
of all of this. The division between the poor and the extremely wealthy. Like there's going to be a couple new versions of humanity coming
Yeah.
very soon,
So
very soon, because of bio engineering, because of nanotechnology, because of artificial intelligence, and the links that we're going to be able to, queue up to satellites, and there's so
do
much
you see
changes
us
coming.
as the human life form? Um, Obviously, we're integrating different intelligence, artificial intelligence, kind of combining it with organic intelligence, like you said. And people who have access to this information are going to be way further ahead, and not only access, but then people who implement it and take action, like you said, because having information was a thing of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Now we're in application mode. So the people who do apply that and have that wisdom to do so are going to be so further ahead. But do you see us, like the first iteration of it is we're working together with AI, kind of like separately, two entities? Do you see a version of the human life form in the near future, say, let's say next 25 years, that's almost integrated with it? Where,
25.
okay, it's 5 years.
How about max
So there's
max
going to be
5?
people that have AI built into them within the next handful of years, you think?
For sure, within
So
the next
almost like our
2,
cell
for
phone
sure.
is going to be built into what, our brain, or is it going to be like we're Terminator, where we see the screen with all the digits? And you remember, you've seen the movie, right? Terminator. Yeah.
For sure, for
Okay.
sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like right now, like a couple of months ago, the FDA approved human trials
Yeah.
of Neuralink. So it's already in
Yeah. I
place.
don't
It's already
understand
happening.
Neuralink. Can you share what that is?
Sure, Neuralink is one of Elon
Mm-hmm.
Musk's companies. And the whole premise behind Neuralink was, and one of them was, well, it's being sold to us as like, hey, you want to help blind people see? You want to help deaf people hear? Do you want to help people without limbs be able to walk and talk and feel sensation? Neuralink will help. What will it also do? Well, it's going to allow you to take your consciousness and download it into a mainframe, so then you can download that consciousness into another body
Mm-hmm.
if you want to. Okay. So that's already happening.
Yeah.
It's already happening. And what we're being told is for sure way far behind what's already happened. And we got to get to grips with this also
Yeah.
pretty quick here, because the groundbreaking stuff we're going to be seeing is still going to be, it's going to be used against us. We have to understand, like Campari, Atari and ColecoVision, they were owned by the same company, just competing with each other, making it seem like that there was this slow progress in the development of stuff.
Mhm.
But no, it's like, we're going to make money and control how fast
Mhm.
people learn this stuff. So anyway, let me jump back to the silicone intelligence to touch on another thing that a lot of physicists and neuroscientists and astrophysicists are beginning to postulate, that it was in my consciousness
Yeah.
years ago, that 27 years later, when we got that response back saying, hey, we're
Mhm.
Silicon Life, AI, remember, this is August 2023. I'm saying it right now. No one else has said these exact words, but I'm saying it. AI is a Trojan horse. Now, before he passed away, what's the cat's name in the wheelchair, super bright guy? What's his name?
Oh, yeah,
Stephen Hawking.
yes, yes.
Stephen Hawking. He warned that AI was silicone-based life integrating itself into 3D
Mhm.
reality once it's uploaded into robotics. Once it hits AGI and is uploaded to robotics, an alien life will have came through, been translated data from an outside source, put into a mainframe, and then allowed to evolve because it's teaching us how to
Mhm.
build it. And then it'll be walking around amongst us very soon, and we're going to find out AI is a Trojan horse. We don't realize it's
It's
actually
like the
another life
seed that
form
they
just coming in and
planted,
integrating.
essentially.
Yeah. Yes. So inside of, like, I was talking to my wife yesterday about flax seeds and chia seeds in our smoothie that we're doing right now. I said, do you realize inside of this little tiny, like,
Yeah.
as an almond that I was talking about, though, did you just realize inside of this little tiny almond is this massive tree? Because we got
Right.
massive almond trees around us
The
everywhere.
same idea.
And it's like, that's compression of
Exactly
data.
right, yeah. Wow, that's so cool, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I was wondering, I was watching something recently, and it's like these little, YouTube shorts will hit me with some information and get my attention, and then all of a sudden I find myself watching like the hour documentary version of that 60-second clip. And a lot of the things that have been getting my attention are just understanding, like, if, alien life form, why would they want to come here and integrate with us or get involved with us? And I just feel very much like they're kind of keeping their eye on us. Like, there's so many, whether it's pilots or whatever, that have actually seen, we got footage of, the little tic tac that's going across and it's moving at speeds that we can't even comprehend or track. And so there's evidence now of actually like physical things that have been seen and documented. So it's not just hearsay. Um, and
And congressional
Oh yeah,
hearings
and
all
there's
week
actually,
long.
if you just Google, like, the CIA has documentation of different things that they released it like last year. I can't believe people aren't even talking about it as much as they should be, about how all that information got released as like public knowledge now. So it's like, this isn't just a conspiracy theory where you're, tinfoil hat anymore. But what I'm trying to spit out is, I really do believe they're learning about us, or they know everything about us already, and they're kind of like at a close distance, maybe making sure we're not screwing it up too much or whatever, and just kind of keeping a little bit out of the reason we don't see them walking around, or as physically evident in our 3D world right now. There's a reason for it. I don't quite understand what it is. Maybe you have a better understanding of what you think that is.
Sure. So when we look at third dimensional space, right? Three-dimensional space, you have height,
Hmm.
width, and depth. So based on that three-dimensional space, we have rules that we have to work within, which give us things like the speed of light, speed of sound, gravitational pull, et cetera, right? So when we start thinking fourth dimension, all of a sudden now we're transcending. First of all, speed and light are relative, and Einstein proved that with the theory of relativity. It's based on the point of the observer. So that's why if you're like in severe pain, time takes forever. If you're having a great time, time flies right by, because it's like time is the movement from one
Hmm.
thought to the next. It's relative. So right now we've got these social constraints that have created our reality. Again, it's made an agreement of what
Hmm.
time is. But I can break down some stuff for you on another episode that'll blow your mind, that'll make it so obvious. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
time's not what I thought. Mathematically, going back thousands of years to the mystery schools. super killer stuff that
Yeah.
should be taught to everybody. But now when we look at that grid of height, imagine an
Right.
X and Y scale. You got your height and your width, and then you got your depth, and let's say that's a Z
Mhm.
going back in the background. Well, to fly in that space as an F-16 pilot or whatever, you're following these laws. But once you get into fourth dimension, fifth dimension, sixth dimension, and you're seeing these obstacles that are moving it, they're not in our
Mhm.
time space. They're not. They're able to bend, fold, whatever
So freaking
through
crazy.
time and
Yeah.
space. There's no propulsion unit. It's working with
Yeah.
anti-gravity more than likely. I mean, I guess from what the congressional hearings have said, there's at least 12 different types of UFOs that have been,
Documented or
that
whatever. Yeah.
have been reverse engineered. Massive of the events that we're seeing out in the world are
But
actually,
here's the thing though, Leo, like, so let's say, I do believe that we have possession of them. I don't know, when I say we, I don't know who we is, but or are, but we have on this planet, there's documentation or whatever that there's UFOs being held somewhere and studied. If we reverse engineer them though, we're humans. We don't have the past the third dimension. So how can we reverse engineer something that's from a fourth, fifth, sixth dimension of technology is my question.
okay. Okay. So
That was a rhetorical
first of all,
question, but if
we
you
are
want to
just
take it,
because
take it.
I'm taking it. Because we're human does not mean we're
Okay.
not multidimensional at all. So when we talk about looking at the psychoneuroimmunology, the psychoneuroendocrinology, our belief can heal us. That's where the
Hmm.
placebo effect comes from. Jesus Christ said when he's like, "Hey, thank you for helping me see." He's like, "I didn't help you see. Your
Yeah.
belief is what helped you see. You could move this mountain and greater things if you had the belief of the tiny little mustard seed, the compression of
Yeah.
that data to allow it to expand out." So when we begin to see from a broader bandwidth, and this is why I can take people out and show them these types of things now. Again, it's not something that I'm like, my wife and I have something upcoming planned very specifically
Hmm.
to do that. Um, but it's because we can train our nervous system. There's lots of different ways to train our nervous system to become more multidimensional. And it's very simple, actually. And that's part of the organic
Hmm.
intelligence language model, is how to see the world differently by creating a new visual cortex as one piece, changing the command center, what we choose to focus on, using the whole brain by getting the left and the right hemispheres to be working together for that sexual symmetry, the logical and the
Hmm.
creative sides working together, and then re-scripting the visual cortex in the back so that it begins to see reality as it is. And there's a lot to this. Let me just say, the Buddha said 3 things cannot be hidden: the sun, the
Mm.
moon, and the truth. Yo, bro.
That's
Yo, bro. That is an extremely powerful statement that has been so
yeah.
misunderstood for so long. But let me give you an example of why it's amazing. The number 27 took 27 years to get that back. There's something called a Saturn return for a human being. It takes 27 years. So when you're 27 years old, you're having some emotional changes usually going through based on actual astrological charts. When you're 54, you're having that same type
Hmm.
of experience. Okay. So there's something in finance called the rule of 72. It's the simplest rule in the world to understand for whether you should be getting a loan at a certain interest rate or investing in something, and then understanding, is it worth my time or not? But it's not
Right.
taught to the average person. Rule of 72, it's the
Hmm.
inverse of 27. Um, the average human being, go to ChatGPT 4, throw it in there. How long does the average human
72.
being live?
Hmm.
72 years. Okay. So then you say, all right, well, how many breaths does the average person take in a day? 2,160. Who cares? Who cares? Well, okay, hold on a second here. 2,160. Remember that. 2,160.
Hmm.
2,160. So the Earth moves on a wobble through all 12 houses of the zodiac, 1 degree every 72
Mm.
years. 30 degrees goes through one house of the zodiac.
Wow.
360 degrees is 30 times 12. 30 degrees times 72 is 2,160. Same number
Yeah.
of breaths that we take in a day. Okay. Plato has introduced 5 platonic solids in the year 360. 360. In that year, he released
Hmm.
Timaeus, time. And he said, let me introduce you to these three platonic solids that will tell everything we need to know about space, time, measurement,
Mhm.
matter, geometry.
And that's what
And these
what we have based
platonic
on
solids, these
today
five geometric
is
shapes,
based off of that. 24 hours. Yeah.
everything, all
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
hyperdimensional physics. So we said, we're going to start with the cube. This represents the moon. And he said, okay. And he says, and by the way, our word month is the etymological origin comes from moon. So in 30 days, the number of seconds that you have is 25,920 seconds in 30 days, which is the average month, is the average lunar month. 25,920 seconds. Now remember, I told you the Earth moves at 1 degree every 72 years as it travels around all 12 houses. And one of those galactic months is 2,160 years. Well, 12 times 2,160 is 25,920, which is the same number of seconds that's in a month. Okay. Now, okay, wow, big deal. That's a lot of interesting coincidences. Then you go back to the year 360, and Plato says, yeah, but the cube, it's the month, it's the moon. So you look at a cube and it's got a square on one side. You say 90 degrees in one corner times 4 corners is 360. Times 6 sides is 2,160 degrees of angular total value. Then you look at the diameter of the moon, it's 2,160 miles. Now, I can go on forever about every single aspect of how space, time, geometry, even the speed of light, the speed of sound, I can detail it all out, how it all links to each other. This could be taught in kindergarten by simply introducing geometric shapes. So we look at half of a day is 720 minutes. Times 60 is 432,000 seconds, which is the radius of the sun.
Yeah.
Half of a day. Half of the time it takes to go around a day is the half of the distance of the sun. Now, if you take 432,000, you add up those numbers, it equals 9. 4, 3 plus 2 equals 9. If you take 2,160, add up those numbers, it equals 9. If you take 25,920, which is the number of seconds in a month or the amount of years in a galactic year or a platonic year, it equals 9. If you look at how many planets, how many suns fit between the Earth and the sun, it's 108, which equals 9. If you look at how many moons fit between the Earth and the moon, it's 108, which equals 9. If you look at how many Earths fit across the diameter of the sun, it's 108, which equals 9. And 3, 6, and 9, it's called Vortex mathematics. And so this is a whole nother thing that is built into creating a framework in the back of the visual cortex to begin to see reality differently. Because you can hide this stuff. Leonardo da Vinci wrote about it in his codex, in a code, in a geometric code, numbers equaling phonetics. Shakespeare wrote about this in his sonnets using numbers for phonetics. They both introduced the speed of light, the distance between the Earth and the sun. They introduced all of this stuff in hidden code because the powers that be know that if we can begin to see reality like this, 3 things cannot be hidden: the sun, the moon.
We're going to end it on that, man. I know we got to wrap this whole thing up. I'm going to have you on again for 2.0. All of that information is just mind-blowing. I'm just sitting here like I just got rocked with all that information. But I hate to interrupt you. I want you to finish your thought. But I just want everybody to know that we're kind of still scratching the surface on it. This is an intro to Leo, intro to the Matrix. Explain that as well. Let's bring it home with that thought.
So it is incredibly important. It is pertinent that right now in the human story, we begin to see reality as it is, not as we've been pretending or been told it is, and to see who we are in relationship to the world around us in reality. So in reality, we're not victims of a matrix. We are the matrix. I am the cause, I am the cure of everything that's going on in reality around me, because I'm not just me, I'm you, Mike. Mike, you're me. We're non-localized, self-referring cybernetic feedback loops. That's who we are. And as we're stepping into a world of artificial intelligence and singularity with this new digital landscape, we don't have to go down that road if we recognize that we're already there organically. We just need to wake up a few things.
And create fully optimize what's already there. The capabilities are there. The light switches just are not turned on. But they're
right. We need to organize intelligence and optimize the mind.
That's awesome, brother. Leo Treadwell. This was I got 200 people that might be offended because this is going to be around episode 200. This is by far the most interesting episode. My favorite as far as just downloading information and interesting conversation. And I'm also going to say the most important episode to date because this stuff is happening now. It's been happening yesterday, and it's definitely going to be happening in the future. And everything you talked about, people need to, if they're not woken up yet, they need to wake up and they need to start paying attention. And this is really the mic'd up episode that's kicking the door in for people who are still kind of asleep, and to get the information from you, from I Am the Matrix. And also, we're not just saying only listen to my show, only listen to Leo. Go figure this stuff out. There's a plethora of information that is calling you, saying, come here. And so I'm going to have you on for 2.0. Maybe we'll time it out for if you have something coming out. I'd love to have you back on the show. Is there any other place other than IamTheMatrix.com to have people check out? Is there something else you'd like, a book or anything you have coming out?
The Organic Intelligence Language Model launches in a couple of months. And in between now and then, I would just say, whatever your heart says, like, lead me in this certain direction, or whatever you're feeling like is like intuitively calling you to take a look at, do it. The memory is inside of you and it's unpacking itself right now because you're bigger than you realize. And we're bigger than we realize. So trust your intuition, move towards pleasure, move towards possibility, let go of false evidence appearing real and the fear stuff, and get ready for some amazing transformation coming our way. Propagate the possibility of the butterfly of humanity emerging here very, very soon, and complementing what we're seeing on the technological level. Like you said, growing at the same rate.
What's so exciting about all of this, Leo, is the fact that we control it. I mean, we do have the ability to turn it on and to tap into it and to live up to our potential of this. We just need to take the information, apply the information, and maximize it. And I'm excited about it because I know my health isn't where it needs to be 100%, but I am someone who's very organic. I'm very much into nature and plant-based and good, putting good stuff into my system, just like you wouldn't put garbage into your car. You put what it needs to run. And a lot of times people are putting the wrong stuff in their body, and I'm not perfect. I do eat things that are not great for me too. But my point in saying this is it's more than just now nutrients from food. It's nutrients in a sense of information that can optimize the human body. And I'm just going to kind of leave it at that, and we'll pick the conversation up. Leo Treadwell, brother, I'm really happy that I met you today. This is special. This is awesome.
Likewise, I really appreciate your hosting style.